The opening scene unfolds the story of 1845, when two ships from the Royal Navy, the HMS Erebus and the HMS Terror, set out to find a passage through the Arctic. But they vanished after being last seen near Baffin Bay. In 1849, inside a tent, two men talk to a local who claims to have seen the last survivors of the journey. He heard about a creature called Toonback that hunted the crew of the expedition. The last survivors warned them that they were being chased by this entity and, in their final words, urged them not to stay in the icy land, for the crew was already dead and gone. Back in September of 1846, the ships sail through the icy waters. Aboard the Erebus are Captain Francis Crozier, the commanding officer of HMS Terror, Captain Sir John Franklin, the commanding officer of HMS Erebus and expedition leader, and Captain James Fitzjames, the first officer of HMS Erebus. The captains and higher-ranking officers enjoy a warm dining room with fine dishes and drinks, sharing stories. Meanwhile, one crew member, David, suddenly convulses, coughs, and spits up blood. The captains worry about scurvy, but the ship's doctor believes it is something more serious. For now, they give him Dover's powder to help with his condition. On board, the tension between Crozier and Fitzjames is evident, with Franklin trying to mediate their disagreements. Crozier, however, is clearly troubled. As David is being transferred from the Terror to the Erebus, the ship suddenly jolts, causing a crew member at the top to fall over the side and into the freezing water. Before anyone can rescue him, he drowns and disappears beneath the surface. The military journals and captain's logs record the loss of men. Meanwhile, David receives care from Dr. Stephen Stanley and Assistant Surgeon Harry Goodsir aboard the Erebus. He shares his feelings of weakness and his desire to impress Franklin. Dr. Stanley warns him that he should not have lied about his limitations, suggesting that when Franklin eventually buries him, it will be a moment to honor his loyalty. The scene then shifts to a flashback of Crozier at the Opera House, where he appears much happier than in his current life. He celebrates alongside Franklin and Sir James Clark Ross, soaking in the vibrant atmosphere of the performance. This joyful memory stands in stark contrast to his present demeanor aboard the Terror. At night, David's illness worsens, and Goodsir stays by his side. In a moment of distress, David sees a vision of a man wearing a mask. He begins to shout in fear as the indigenous man removes the mask and warns Goodsir to run away from there before he quickly dies. Goodsir rushes to Dr. Stevens' room to inform him of David's death, but Dr. Stevens seems indifferent, showing no sign of concern. He treats the news casually, even when Goodsir tries to explain what David saw. However, Dr. Stevens dismisses him and sends him away. The ice is currently blocking the journey, making progress difficult. Second Master Henry Collins prepares to dive into the icy Arctic waters to investigate the situation below. Meanwhile, Goodsir is performing an autopsy on David's chest, following Franklin's orders. As Collins explores the dark depths of the Arctic Ocean, he spots something unsettling, a figure with outstretched arms while he removes a large pack of ice that has jammed the ship. He quickly signals to his crew to pull him back up. Once aboard, the officers ask about the ship's condition. Collins reports that he has cleared the ice blockage, but keeps the disturbing image of the human figure to himself. The Erebus has a damaged propeller, and their resources are running low. The captains engage in a heated debate about their next steps. Crozier suggests that they may need to abandon the Erebus, a proposal that both Sir John and Captain Fitzjames reject. However, Crozier emphasizes they may have to consider the decision soon if they are serious about survival. With supplies dwindling each day as they remain stuck in the ice, they must also be aware of the shifting ice packs that could pose a serious threat. The two ships come to a halt to allow the young sailors to bury David's body. They lower the coffin into the grave quickly, causing the lid to pop off. One soldier, Hickey, tries to convince his teammates to help close the coffin, but they remain indifferent, prompting him to jump down and respectfully close the lid himself. Afterwards, Franklin sets sail south, delivering a motivational speech to lift spirits and paying tribute to David Young. The ships then set out, breaking a channel through the ice. 6 days later, they find themselves stuck in the vast icy landscape. They undertake the risky task of navigating through the thick Arctic ice, which includes using few explosives. However, progress is minimal. The captains and high-ranking officers have to inform the sailors that they will be staying put for a while. 8 months later, Franklin and Fitzjames examine the ship's interior. While outside, the men's spirits lift a bit as they are told they will push through the passage. However, Crozier appears more withdrawn, which concerns Franklin. A group of sailors then sets off on a scouting mission, including Henry Goodsir, who is eager to help rather than just watch the others work. He may not be a particularly tough man, but he does his best to contribute. Inside the ship, Franklin engages Crozier in a conversation, questioning why he has been avoiding Erebus throughout the winter. Crozier explains that he is focused on his responsibilities as a captain and can sense danger from miles away. He insists that his distance stems from the challenges of the journey, the harsh weather, and the differences between the two men from two different ships. Francis warns that summer is merely a name, as the temperature barely rises above freezing. Elsewhere, Goodsir and the crew reach a peak point. Beyond it lies an inlet leading into the interior. The men venture onward through the frigid Arctic air. One of them notes a marker a few miles ahead, left by the Eskies. They dismantle the stone marker to leave their own coordinates and other information in a capsule. After that, they split up and continue their journey. The two of them head in the opposite direction while the 6 others make their way back to the boat. When they arrive, they come across a shocking sight. The boat is wrecked. The men wonder what could have caused the damage, and Goodsir suggests that a bear might be responsible, given the extent of the destruction. Simultaneously, another group of crew members arrives back at the Erebus, where Franklin finds out that some of their food supplies have been spoiled. This new issue adds to their already limited resources, making their situation even more critical. With fewer provisions available, the crew must now confront the reality that survival is becoming increasingly difficult as they face the harsh Arctic conditions. In the belly of the ship, William Gibson and Cornelius Hickey, the 2 crew members, are discovered by Lieutenant John Irving. Although he does not see them directly, the 2 have been engaged in inappropriate behavior to pass their time. Gibson expresses concern that they might get caught, but Hickey dismisses his worries, believing Irving will not report them to the captain. As Franklin observes his crew playing football on the icy ground, he recalls a moment at home after the Opera House event. He and his wife, Lady Jane, are trying to support their niece, Sophia Cracroft. They warn her that men like Francis are full of dreams as explorers and affirm that he is a good man, but he comes from a different background than theirs. Franklin makes this remark without realizing that Francis is close by and can hear him. Later at midnight, Crozier lies awake, contemplating their dire situation when another high-ranking officer joins him. He expresses his concerns about how long they might remain trapped in the ice, and questions whether they can endure another winter. The officer advises him that if they do have to spend another winter there, the pressure could lead to serious structural damage without a proper thaw, or worse, it could cause the ship to sink beneath the ice. In contrast, Goodsir's crew is getting ready for the night as a fierce hailstorm hits, accompanied by lightning and thunder. With 2 tents set up, they quickly seek shelter inside but are soon startled by a loud noise nearby. The men grab their weapons in response. In the darkness, one of them accidentally shoots an Inuit man in the chest as he approaches from a peak in the ice, accompanied by her young daughter. Goodsir is called to the peak to assist the injured man, while another crew member rushes to inform the lieutenant about the situation, when he spots a creature attacking the lieutenant near the tent. As Hickey works, Crozier arrives, and they bond over a drink, silencing Irving's comments about Hickey's revelation. Meanwhile, Goodsir and his crew return to the ship to treat the injured Inuit man, but Dr. Stephen refuses to help. Despite Goodsir's efforts, he is unable to save the man. The young Inuit woman cries to her father, saying she cannot continue alone, and insists he must die under the open sky, not inside the ship. Afterward, Franklin wants to send her away, but Crozier offers to take her aboard the Terror. Goodsir reports the incident on the ice, and the lieutenant's death, noting that there are no signs of thawing in King William Land. He also reveals that the Inuit man had his tongue removed, but Franklin does not show any interest in the Inuit man. Next, Crozier attempts to communicate with the Inuit girl in her language, telling her that he was called a Glucka. He explains he wants to help, but she warns them to leave the Arctic, or they will disappear. Days later, the crew tends to the dead Inuit man and discovers charms on him. Goodsir asks them to leave the charms with the body. Later, the girl receives her father's charm, but when she asks for more, the men tell her that's all they could find. She is then named Lady Silence. As they prepare to bury the Inuit man under the ice, Goodsir protests, but the others handle the body carelessly. Afterward, Lady Silence steps outside the ship and draws a circle a short distance away from the ship. Commander Edward Little, the first lieutenant, discusses the Inuit tribe with Crozier. He asks if Crozier has ever found them unforgiving, expressing concern about the Inuit man's tongue being cut off, and wondering how far the tribe might go in seeking revenge. Crozier replies that he does not know much about that since he has never wronged them. Franklin has a flashback when he was asked about his rescue plan. He responds that he has enough provisions for 3 years if they become stuck in the ice. Throughout his career as an explorer, he has faced numerous challenges, grappling with the masculine pride that makes it hard to accept defeat and failure. His removal as lieutenant governor of Van Diemen's Land weighs heavily on him. As a result, The Arctic expedition becomes a point of pride for him, the one he is determined to complete, no matter the difficult consequences. Later, as Franklin prepares a speech for his lost lieutenant, Crozier suggests sending a team on a challenging journey of 800 miles to the Hudson Bay outpost on Great Slave Lake. Franklin doubts the plan's feasibility, and instead of simply refusing, he makes it personal with Crozier. Meanwhile, Crozier is focused on preventing further loss of life, while Franklin seems more willing to fight to the end rather than understand Crozier's worries. Despite this, Crozier is set on going behind his captain's back to gather a group of men who will follow him. He is willing to take full responsibility if they are found out. Irving runs into Hickey, who thanks him for keeping quiet about what he witnessed in the belly of the ship between him and Gibson. Irving reveals that Gibson told him that he was pressured, so Irving advises Hickey to seek redemption on their journey instead of giving in to temptation. He urges Hickey to focus on self-improvement rather than engaging in such activities. This confrontation only escalates the tension. Hickey then confronts Gibson with anger, threatening him and saying that since Crozier shared a drink with him as a friend, he believes he can act however he wants. At the nearby camp, Franklin orders his men to set a trap for the creature, hanging rats as bait. Eager to witness the hunt, he joins the team on the ice. Suddenly, chaos erupts as a vicious attack occurs. One man is decapitated, causing Franklin to retreat in fear while his men fire wildly at the unseen threat. Back on the ship, Crozier hears the commotion and swiftly commands his crew to respond. Meanwhile, Franklin stumbles towards the ship, but is seized by the creature, dragged through the snow and bitten, causing him to lose a leg. The creature then throws him into a hole in the ice where they had disposed Inuit's body. When the others arrive at the scene, they find a severed leg and massive paw prints in the snow. One of them tries to throw a rope to help Franklin, but is useless as he is already dead. The creature has also vanished without a trace. Crozier takes command of the mission and starts making plans to head to the Hudson Bay outpost, despite Fitzjames opposing him since Franklin wanted to avoid the journey. Crozier allows a day of mourning for Franklin, after which the team will depart for Great Slave Lake. Meanwhile, in an igloo, Lady Silence encounters the creature outside her door. It makes loud noises and breathes heavily before suddenly running off. Curious, she steps outside but only finds a dead seal nearby. 5 months later, Lady Jane and Sophia are anxious about their husband and uncle, Franklin. They visit the Navy to discuss the situation of the HMS Erebus and Terror. Lady Jane expresses her concerns about her husband and urges the Navy to take action to assist him and his expedition. However, the Navy has no immediate plans and states they will wait until 1850 to see if they hear from the expedition. If they do not receive any news by then, they will consider taking action. Goodsir is trying to understand what kind of creature is out on the ice. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew is celebrating a birthday, taking things in loose. Crozier speaks with Captain Steward Thomas Jobson, who updates him on the ship's condition and the state of the canned provisions. Just then, a noise catches Crozier's attention, and he rushes down to find another injured man with a head wound. As they talk, a soldier informs him that one of their teammates has been taken by the creature. Crozier quickly orders his men to search for the creature on the ice. He and a crew member named Evans venture out. Hearing strange sounds, Crozier climbs to a peak and discovers blood-stained ice with a jacket nearby. As he calls for Evans, the creature pulls Evans away, leaving only blood behind. After the incident, Crozier speaks to Fitzjames about his priorities, which include a responsibility to Sophia about a commitment to protect Franklin. He realizes that Fitzjames is aware of his feelings, as the news has spread from Franklin. Dr. Stephen and Goodsir examines the recently deceased man. Dr. Stephen seals his eyes with wax. In another part of the ship, the crew expresses their frustrations about the hidden danger and the requirement for night watch shifts confined by the ice. When the officer announces the watch duty, Hickey's name is also called. During his shift, he discovers another soldier's body, cut in half. They take the corpse to the doctors downstairs, who tell Crozier and Fitzjames that the injuries are from a single powerful claw, and that the upper and lower halves belong to different people. Irving suggests consulting the indigenous people for answers, mentioning Lady Silence as a possible link to the deaths. The crew wonders about the connection between her and the creature's arrival on the ship. Crozier orders his men to bring her from her igloo the next morning, and leaves the room, feeling exhausted. After leaving the room, Crozier remembers a moment with Sophia, where she turns down his marriage proposal. She feels he is too committed to his life at sea, even when he is on land. Sophia is concerned that he identifies too much as a Navy captain, and worries about their future. Crozier reassures her that he will soon be knighted, and talks about another chance to discover the Northwest Passage. However, Sophia does not understand his obsession with it. Just then, Lady Jane interrupts their conversation, asking Sophia to get ready to meet her uncle Franklin. His moment of reflection is interrupted by the sounds of a riot. Lady Silence has been captured and brought aboard the ship. Some crew members are ready to harm her, while others try to stop them. Crozier fires a shot to restore order. Crozier decides to take Lady Silence to the Erebus for her safety, and instructs his men to make her feel secure and comfortable. He asks who is responsible for bringing her aboard. Hickey and 2 other men stand up, and they are taken to the captain's quarters to speak with Crozier and Fitzjames. In the quarters, Hickey explains how he and the other 2 men went to the area where Lady Silence has an igloo. They found her there with a creature that was 3 times the size of a normal bear, but it ran away after she spoke to it. He justifies his actions by saying that Crozier needed to act quickly, so he took the men with him. Once he finishes, Crozier reprimands him for leaving his post and disobeying orders, ordering lashings for Hickey and the others who tried to capture Lady Silence. Hickey faces the harshest punishment after he disrespectfully protests, and he is told he will be punished like a boy for his insubordination, neglect of duty, and disrespect. Hickey is ordered to receive 30 lashes. In the medical bay of the Terror, Hickey is being treated for his lashes, while on the Erebus, Dr. Stephen and Goodsir are caring for John Morphin, a crew member. During this time, Dr. Stephen is ordered to feed Lady Silence, and is also informed about Hickey's punishment on the Terror. After receiving the order, he passes the task to Goodsir, who also needs to attend to Morphin. As Dr. Stephen leaves, Goodsir notices that Morphin has black gums and rotting teeth, which likely indicates an outbreak of scurvy. Simultaneously, Crozier feels the weight of leadership bearing down on him, and it is clear that the role he never wanted is already affecting him. In the meantime, Goodsir attends to Lady Silence, who is locked in a small room. He brings her a meal, but she spits it out. Trying to connect with her, he talks positively about the Nunavut region and the Inuktitut language. He tells her about their mission to discover a Northwest Passage, and refers to it as a victory for the Empire for their economy. Despite this, he is building a bond with her, and learning about the kinds of food she might enjoy. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and leave 1,000 likes or 100 comments if you'd like us to continue part 2. Thank you.